Good evening, everyone. For the third year in a row, I have the honor to be signing a budget that is balanced, that is on time, and that honors the promises that I made to the citizens of Pennsylvania. This plan, once again, provides record levels of state funding for basic education while meeting our obligations to those in need, to the safety of our citizens, and to our job creators, all without raising taxes. We do that by spending with restraint, investing with care, and keeping faith in the free market system. We can continue that momentum toward prosperity. This budget once again places education as our highest priority, accounting for 41 cents of every state dollar. Under this budget, we will increase spending on basic education by an additional $122.5 million, including money for distressed schools. We're also increasing funding for early education, bringing our total state outlay on education to nearly $11 billion. In almost every aspect of public service, this budget exceeds past levels. We provide an additional $20 million for Pennsylvanians with physical disabilities, and another $20 million to further reduce the waiting list for persons with intellectual challenges, including autism. That actually brings the state funding total for persons with intellectual challenges to more than $1 billion. This is something that I asked for in that budget speech back in February. And the members that are here, I want to thank you for what you did. Please pass along those thanks to your members in the House and in the Senate. We also provide a record amount allocated to fight domestic violence and to provide crisis assistance to the victims of sexual assault, and more money for community health programs around the Commonwealth, providing greater access and affordability for those in need. Under this budget, we provide more than $445 million to cover more than 200,000 children through the state's CHIP program, a national model for ensuring the health of our children. In the area of job creation, our fiscal and economic development policies have met the needs of our citizens, and we've set a national standard for success. Just in the past 2.5 years, we've added more than 100,000 new jobs to the private sector. And the number of gainfully employed Pennsylvanians is at its highest rate since 1982. Our unemployment rate is at the lowest rate we have seen since the recession. And it's important to keep in mind that this job growth has not happened in spite of our refusal to raise taxes. To the contrary, it's happened because we refuse to raise taxes. Lower taxes mean more money invested in growing private sector industries and the jobs that they provide. Last year, you might recall that we eliminated the death tax on the family farms. By doing that, we were able to save a way of life for the thousands of Pennsylvanians while preserving jobs. This year, we have worked to eliminate the inheritance tax on small businesses, the kinds of businesses that provide the majority of jobs for our citizens. With this reform, families will be able to continue their way of life when a parent or grandparent dies, and will be able to continue their family business providing jobs for our citizens. At the municipal level, our city revitalization improvement zone program provides funding for cities to attract new growth and revitalization. Because we understand that the health of our cities is a measure of our health of our state economies. But we do have some unfinished business. The General Assembly accomplished two very historic votes in both the House and the Senate. Votes that clearly reflected the public's demand for greater choice and convenience by ending an outdated state-run monopoly in the market for wine and spirits. The General Assembly has yet to reach a final agreement, though, on that language in a final bill. And that would honor the public's will when it comes to the sale of beer, wine, and spirits. Likewise, in pension reform, work remains to be done. Right now, our state's unfunded pension liability for state and public school employees is nearing a staggering $50 billion. Without reforms, this debt will grow. Without reforms, it will continue to grow and jeopardize the hard-earned pensions of tens of thousands of state employees, while robbing citizens of the revenues we need to address the core functions of government. And lastly, we have yet to reach an agreement on a bill that will resolve a 15-year-long problem in funding for our roads and bridges and our other public transportation systems. They are assets that belong to all of our citizens. We must confront the challenge of keeping them in good repair. So I look forward to working with the General Assembly in enacting fair, balanced, long-term, and sustainable solution to the difficulties that plague our aging transportation system. We are making progress. We are moving forward. And I look forward to the return of the General Assembly after your summer time back home. I'm not going to call it a break, because I know you all work, but I look forward to your return in the fall. With that, I'm going to sit down and sign the bill, then I'll answer questions. Senior, Brad?
Governor, how much of a disappointment to you is it not to get liquor and transportation? And what specifically you intend to do to try to get that involved?
Well, first off, keep in mind that it's always a two-year General Assembly. So it's not a disappointment. How could I be disappointed with the work that these men and women behind me did and the work that the men and women in the Senate did in passing those bills in some form? The Senate, the House got a bill over to the Senate. That's never happened before in the history of this state. Transportation, the Senate got a bill over to the House. We need that bill. So we've made progress. These aren't easy things to do. There are, as you know, many interest groups with many different perspectives in a bill like this. So I can't be disappointed. I have to thank the people for what they did. And I certainly encourage them when they get back in the fall. Let's get it done. Next question.
There's a Medicaid expansion bill now going to the House. How do you feel about the force to expand Medicaid specific timetable?
Well, first off, I don't have a bill on my desk. So you're making an assumption. I'm not going to talk about it. Let's talk about Medicaid. I've told you I have been working with Washington. My secretary, now I can call her secretary, not secretary nominee, Bev McArick, has been working hard down there along with the Department of Welfare in working with Washington to get reforms to the Medicaid system. We have to reform the Medicaid system. keep in mind, the president himself said, in 2009, it was a broken system. So we have to fix it. We have to fix it as applies to Pennsylvanians and to our needs. And so we are working with them for some good common sense reforms, like a job search, a reasonable requirement for job search, a copay, possibly using the money into the private sector to go into the private exchange. So I'm not going to talk about anybody being forced or anything, but we are going to be looking for those reforms.
You passed, liquor privatization bill passes the House, and before it's on your desk, you voice your support for it. Why aren't you voice your position on a Medicaid expansion?
Well, I just told you where I am, so we're working to get reforms. I have to see a bill that has reforms in it. Okay?
Governor, is the message you're sending out that you're pleased with how this turned out, that none of the 3 items have been enacted with the budget?
Well, no, I think everybody here would have liked to have been, had them all done, but it didn't happen. But this is the end of, if I'm going to equate it to a football game and the way the legislative session is signed and set up, it's the end of the first quarter. We got 3 more quarters to go. In the back.
Governor Corbett, are you concerned about the quote-unquote linkage between transportation and liquor, that you might not be able to get one without the other, given the way some folks in the House seem to feel on those issues?
Well, Mike, you want to answer that for me?
There's no linkage, and I will tell you that we think they, in fact, should not be linked. They should be decoupled. The fact of the matter is, the governor asked for an historic reform of the sale of wine and spirits to move us into the 21st century, and the House of Representatives delivered on March 21st.